My name is Kristen Simmons, and I am blessed to have been given this opportunity to share with you my testimony. I was working at Texas Children's as a nurse, and I was caring for this little girl, and her mom was sleeping on the day bed. And then hours later, we had occupational therapy come in with someone that they were training, and so there was 3 of us staff members. While we were in there, the mom abruptly wakes up and just looks around and kind of startled. And I just observed her. And then she looked around the room and said, "Which one of you has a grandmother named Mary?" And the young girl who was in training said, "Oh, my grandmother's name is Mary." And I thought to myself, this is so wild. I've never experienced this before. And so I then spoke up and said, "Well, that's funny. My grandmother's name is Mary." And at that time she said, "Well, now I got to figure out which one of you it is." And I thought, and also said to her, I said, "What are you, some kind of reader?" And in the moment she said something like that. And that was when you felt the Holy Spirit fill the room. And I was just so taken back, like, whoa, what is happening? And so then we all continued what we were doing. And occupational therapy walks out of the room to chart, and the mother then starts talking to me and telling me a few things. None of it made sense to me. And I said, "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I trust you, but I don't understand." I said, "I think your message might be for the other girl." And she said, "Well, you can go ask her." And I said, "Okay." So I stepped out of the room. I said, "Girl, this is not for me. She's telling me all these things. It's got to be for you." And the girl in training said, "I'm not going back in there." So then I had to go back in there, and as I walked in, I said, "She said it wasn't for her." And now the mom is standing up, and we're talking, and she said, "Now let me ask you this." And I said, "Okay." She said, "Does the name Marlene ring a bell?" I froze and I looked at her, and I said, "That's my other grandmother's name." And she said, "I knew that this message was for you, but I had to validate it to you." I was like, "Okay." And so then she went and sat down and she started writing in this notebook. And after she was finished, she read it to me and was talking to me about it. And I have it here. And everything that she was saying did not make sense. And I said, "I'm so sorry, ma'am." I was like, "I trust you, but it doesn't make sense." So then she did with her hand, she goes, "It may not make sense to you today, tomorrow, the next few weeks, but in the next couple months, this will all make sense to you." And I said, "Okay." And so I kept this letter, and I was just I knew it was something special, but I just did not understand it. And I had even read this letter to my husband, read it to my coworkers. I called my dad, read it to him, and just talked about how prophetic this message was. So in that letter, she said, "You won't be on this job long. Your next shift will be your best shift ever, and the business will be blessed by the working of your hands." So with that timeline on that letter, I had to go to work the next week. And so I went into work just like, let's see if this is gonna be my best shift ever. And it standout was my best shift ever. And I was home before I ever usually would leave work. And so she also said that the business would be blessed by the working of my hands. And that was wild because she knew nothing of me. And the year prior, I had started Southern Core Gourmet Caramel Apples and just kind of dabbled in that. And so I just really paid attention to these words that she had written in here. And that letter, then I just put, after that best shift I had, I just folded the letter up and just put it by my bed and didn't think too much of it until July 4th of 2021, I got a knock at my door at 4 a.m. And it was the police officer asking me if I was the wife of David Tondera. And I said, "Yes, sir." And he didn't speak. And I just looked at him and I said, "He died." He said, "Yes, ma'am, I'm so sorry." My husband and I had been married since 2008, And we had just such a strong foundation of a family. And our son Nolan was 7 at the time. And our daughter Gwyneth had just turned 2. And when I found out the news, my brain just immediately went to that letter, to find that letter and look out and just look through it and like, what else do I need to prepare myself for? Because now everything thus far that has happened has been in this letter. And I won't read all of it to you because a lot of it's very personal, but in the beginning, as I hear the Lord say, there was nothing you could do, it will be okay. So there was still that one thing that said that you won't be on this job long. So I was trying to prepare myself for that because the thought's pretty hard of being a widow with 2 young children and not having your husband and knowing that from everything in this letter that you soon won't have a job either. So when I was at the cemetery, I had been on a phone call with the clinical director, and he had informed me that when I did come back, I had to make a decision on whether or not I was to get the COVID vaccine. And so before my husband's passing, he had told me, if they make it mandatory, you're out. And I agreed. And the whole thing on that is to each his own. If it's for you, it's for you. If it's not, it's not. But for our family, it wasn't for us. And so when I then got the news that here's the end of Texas Children's for me, I had such a piece of peace because God had given this to me through the prophet. And God knows us all uniquely and knows all of our needs. And I know that I would have probably been down a dark road if I didn't have this piece of paper. So with having that piece of peace and knowing that was going to be my last shift, it was time to apple hustle and make Southern Core full time. Another part of this story that doesn't involve this letter, but I know that is so much God in it, is that about a month or so before my husband's accident, he was getting ready for work and I was still in bed, and he looked at me and he said, if anything happens to me, I want you to find someone. And I said, boy, nothing's gonna happen to you. And if you know him, that's very out of character for him because I was his, he was mine. There's no him even thinking that I could be with anyone else. And so if God hadn't placed those words that day, I was also very much okay with being alone and raising the kids by myself and just being the best grandmother that I could be. But I thank God for knowing me so well that David said that to me that day, because that allowed my heart to heal and for me to have joy and not just pain. And so with that, I reconnected with someone, and I tried to fight it and deny it and all the things. But I thank God for bringing me Sam and bringing him into my life and the kids' life, because he has been such a blessing. When my heart was ready, God brought Sam back into my life. And Sam and I, we've known each other since 1994. We grew up together, we graduated together. Off to college I went and made a family, and off to the Navy he went. So it'd been 20 years since we had seen each other and reconnected, and I'm so thankful that God brought us Sam. And Sam and I got married this past December, and the very next day we were at Velocity And so I'm just so blessed with this opportunity to be able to share this testimony. And when I was first taking in the heaviness of the news of David, I thought to myself, I hope that through all of this, through this whole story, that I can help one person. So I hope that this story inspires you to share your testimony of God's love, because He knows us all in our unique ways, and He will never leave nor forsake us.